Let's start discussing a little bit of black magic. Sounds cool actually, black magic. What's with red magic? It only comes in black. I guess at least it's a cool color, black. They picked the right color if they're going to stick to one color. Essentially, real black magic, real sorcery, which we can really see in the Bible itself. The Torah mentions in Egypt, sorcerers that were able to manipulate forces of creation, spiritual forces above. They were able to create, take a stick and turn it into a snake. They were also able to manipulate forces of divine of energy, causing people that were not wealthy to become wealthy. They were able to do a lot using these powers. Now, it's important to understand, ultimately all power comes from God. So we have to make a distinction between what we call external forces and more internal forces, power that is rooted in the realm of holiness. When we say godliness, or when we talk about God, we almost always this really comes together with the idea of holiness and, purity, goodness, and what we call elokut, divinity. So, but external to this realm, there are external forces, evil forces, negative forces. And over there is in fact a way to access those forces and manipulate them and accomplish things. And that's what really the term black magic is referring to, sorcery and all of that. So the essential difference between, again, when we speak about Kabbalah, now Kabbalah is more than just accessing spiritual forces and trying to use them or manipulate them in some way. Kabbalah is also a system of studying the way the world runs, the creation, the process of creation, understanding in a deeper sense the mechanics of how God created the world, how God is manifest in the world, how the world is run. So Kabbalah includes a lot. One part of Kabbalah, which is called Kabbalah Ma'asit, practical Kabbalah, is connected to and can be discussed in relation to the idea of black magic, sorcery. So in that sense, when it's Kabbalah, when you're using the power and forces of Kabbalah the right way, so first of all, it requires for a person to be holy, righteous, free of sin, completely free of sin. His acts have to be for the sake of heaven. It has to be also for the sake of the masses. It has to be an emergency event where you without this, a tragedy will occur, and you have to also be on a level to understand what we call Ruach HaKodesh. There has to be an ability to perceive the divine will and to know that your actions and your attempt to manipulate right now is in line with what God wants. For example, a great Kabbalist, a Jewish leader, his life was in danger. And so in that case, he used some type of what we call, Kabbalah to manipulate forces of nature to escape the danger. Now, he was an important rabbi that was destined to illuminate the world with secrets of Kabbalah, and he had to live. If he would have died then, it would have been tragic, and it was not the will of God for him to die then. So then using the Kabbalah to escape from that danger was also almost questionable whether he was allowed to use it, but we see that it wasn't considered a misuse of these powers and these forces. Now, certainly when we discuss the black magic and sorcery, when using it in the realm externally, so it seems from stories in the Bible and stories even from the Talmud that non-Jewish figures were given permission to work with these forces on some level. For Jewish people, for people that are trying to do the will of God and have an access and a connection with the Torah and its service and following the ways of the Torah, so accessing these external forces are forbidden and dangerous to the person, and it can cause tremendous spiritual damage and harm to himself, his family. It's meant not to be touched. This discussion about manipulating the external forces that exist in the world, is really connects with idol worship as well. And Zohar, one of the main books of Kabbalah, discuss it, and they explain in the generation of Enosh, really the third generation, Adam, Shet, and Enosh. In the third generation already, many people in the world were well versed in the secrets of Kabbalah and the secrets of sorcery. And until Enosh, though, people were afraid to play with fire, so to speak. They were afraid to actually use the knowledge that they knew. So they behaved. Comes Enosh, and in his generation, people decided to kind of cross that line that was really meant to be uncrossed, and they began to worship idols and manipulate the external forces using sorcery and even using more than that to manipulate the world. And we see the world reached a level of wickedness and destruction that God finally brought a flood and destroyed the world. Actually, it brings up a fascinating question, which is somewhat related. We'll conclude with this point. The Gemara asks, how foolish could the generation of the flood have been to think that they can misuse the powers that God put into this world in order to regulate the world? How could they have thought that they could cheat and manipulate them to serve their own selfish aims and goals, rebelling against God, in fact? How could they think they can get away with it? So the rabbi responds in the Zohar saying that they were so foolish to think that even if God would want to bring retribution upon them, bring punishment upon them, that they would be able to use those powers to stop God even. That's how foolish they reached in their idol worship and in their pursuit of these evil forces. And so the takeaway from this question and discussion is that, yes, in fact, we must be aware that there are forces out there. The Talmud speaks of it, the Zohar speaks of it, and we must not focus on them too much to become either afraid or overly interested in trying to get involved with them. They're dangerous, they're harmful, but one with faith in God and living a simple, good life is protected from the dangers of these elements. However, one who pursues them then opens the door to then be bit by them, be hurt by them, so to speak. You play with a rattlesnake and you get bit, it's your fault. So we have to be very careful and avoid these type of things today. The true path to all of the power that exists in the world is to be loyal and follow the ways of God, have faith in God, and direct all your requests to God himself, who is your creator and the creator of everything, who's ever forgiving and ever loving. And that is where we should look to try to gain the things we want to accomplish in life. Hopefully this answers your question. And those of you watching online, hopefully this is at least part of the beginning of a discussion that you can continue to further investigate and find answers to your questions.